Good morning. I wanted to just plant a seed how important it is to understand risk analysis even at a rudimentary phase. If you're a customer that's hired a consultant for some reason, particularly environmental consulting, and you are fully relying on that consultant to determine your risk, is a big mistake. You should, and most people do this, give and provide context to your business goals, timelines, budgets, values, and pitfalls, and understand how important it is to control the data. All right, so even if there's not some state indoctrinated, risk evaluation cleanup standard or procedure in play with your project, just understanding the risks involved and the perceived risk versus the actual risk, and what is the likelihood of contaminants leaving the site? What is the likelihood of a particular constituent concern that's been found impacting the groundwater below the site? What are these questions, right? So you look at the site in a 3D way in your head, and you can say, okay, am I impacting groundwaters of the state? Is it leaving the surface of the site? Is it leaving through the soil of the site, subsurface? Is it leaving through the air? What are the routes of exposure, and who are the receptors at this time nearby? In some cases, you need to look at the past of who the receptors were. If you're concerned about past liabilities, or even future liabilities, who will be there. But more importantly, what are the risks involved for your intended use of the property today? And for example, if you've got a small hydraulic lift and there's no regulatory body involved, there's no perceived leak, but you need to get it out of the way to do your operation or do a renovation or what have you, then by all means do it, and your notification kicks in if you have an impact to human health or the environment or whatever the criteria is for your state, and impact to groundwater, impact to whatever, air quality, not in that case with hydraulic fluid, but a hydraulic lift. But the more important thing is to focus on managing your consultant so they can provide you with the specific information you're looking for. Oftentimes, I think some consultants are incremental, and they allow either the regulator to dictate the next move. They're strictly about compliance, which is understandable, but that's only half the question. That's half the equation, I should say. You've got to look at the as a client, you need to look at the future intended use with respect to your budget. And if the consultants and the remedial contractors are giving you real world, this is how much it's going to cost to solve the problem numbers, then you have to factor that into your budget and make your business decision accordingly. A lot of times you don't get that level of certainty. You're not going to get that definitive number. I try to provide it as a consultant and a remedial contractor. I understand that's the most sensitive part of everything, is coming up with a number that you can say, this is what it's going to be, planned for this. And they save up their money, they leverage it, they put it into the deal, it's baked into escrow. It's become a known quantity, right? And so, if your consultant isn't helping you become hyper focused on those important parts of making a business decision, then you don't have the right consultant. Sometimes, some consultants are really great at gathering information, but not knowing necessarily what to do with the information. Before you take a sample, you need to ask yourself a question. Why are we taking the sample? What are we testing for? And why is this going to be important to us? And understanding the consequences that go along with that sample, and how valid is it. And, it's a slippery slope. So non-intrusive investigations usually don't get you too far with respect to establishing risk. A long-term history on a site, understanding the past uses, understanding the most recent current use, any incidents, and any idea of what de minimis impacts there were can be very helpful. But facts are, most of the time, you have a quantifiable problem. It does have its limits. It does have its extent, and it can be managed. It's about how quickly can you find out what that price is, and how does that fold into your future intended use for the property. If it's to flip the property and sell it, then you're going to be open to, and you don't want to spend any money on environmental, you're going to be open to the other side, that being the buying party, and their interests and everything that comes along with that. Their insurance, their consultants, their lawyers, their what have yous, operational people, that will kick the tires and look under every stone to work you down on price and to protect their liability. And that's understood. For the seller, it's about grooming the property, getting it prepared. So regardless of the type of sale or lease, it's prepared, it's ready to go. Sometimes we have existing issues, but they're not hurting groundwater, they're not going anywhere, they're contained, there's an engineering control, and so we've determined that there is a risk, but it's under control in this specific area. And so that transaction, be it a lease or a sale, have restrictions that go along with it. So that's my rambling on risk assessment. I'm going to do more on the technical side and interview some people who are much smarter than me on determining risk and getting into the weeds there. But I'm always going to focus in on the big picture, the common sense approach for your average business transaction on properties that might have a perceived problem or might have a serious problem. But there's always a solution, usually. I do have to say that sometimes the value of a property, without the environmental issue, is so low that any environmental problem is too many, and it exceeds that 20% of the value of the property, and that therefore usually is a no-go for a buyer. So anyway, thank you. March 11th, 2024. Signing out.